I'm excited to share that GM Energy's bi-directional chargers are officially now ready to support V2G.
Starting next year, we plan to deploy second life battery packs at our own operating plants, starting with a site in Michigan.
And by combining Peak's system expertise with GM's battery experience and industrialization strength, we have an opportunity to shape the next generation of sodium-ion and grid-scale energy storage technology and help Americans expand energy access to practical, scalable energy storage.
Hi everyone, welcome to Munro Live. We're here at the GM Empower event. I'm with Andy Oury, who is the battery engineer that is talking about all the things on the floor here today. There's a lot going on, a lot of really exciting like news, metrics, stats, like different things that GM is approaching. You know, Andy, one thing that took, beyond the technology side of it that I really took away from those conversations is the level of partnerships that GM is endeavoring to establish, fortify, and announce. Like that, as someone who's supporting all these industries, is very encouraging to me. So I want to talk to you a little bit about that, but obviously the technology on the floor. But thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. We are really excited today. I mentioned earlier when I was talking during the presentations how excited I am. You know, it's kind of nerdy, but this is one of the most exciting days for me in my battery career because we're talking about sodium-ion battery chemistry today, which is a chemistry that's safer, more durable, and made of abundant raw materials.
Peak's system harnesses the strengths of sodium ion, and together we're advancing that foundation with a next generation cell that we're developing in our labs to deliver even greater value for utilities, data centers, and other power providers. That matters because advances at the cell level can translate into meaningful system level benefits for stationary storage. Sodium ion can perform across a wider range of temperatures and for longer than incumbent chemistries, with the potential for less cooling and less complexity than other grid-scale batteries.
Well, and the thing, I think all that is like very palpable if you digest what you just said for a second, but it's also that it's like domestic and accessible, and there's like benefits even on, the anode cathode materials you can use. Like there's all these other things. Why would sodium ion be the best solution from GM's perspective for energy storage in particular?
Yeah, that's a great question, because when you look at what it costs to purchase, install, and operate an energy storage system, this system here has one job. Okay, its job is to take energy from the grid when there's too much and to give energy back to the grid when there's not enough. But the problem is most systems, to do that basic function, you actually need to feed them electricity to keep the battery cells happy inside the system. And that's usually as part of a cooling system. What we realized about sodium ion chemistry working with Peak is that because sodium ion chemistry lasts longer and can operate across a wider range of temperatures, those aren't just great battery qualities. Those are the exact qualities you need if you want to simplify a system like this. Right. Because if the battery lasts longer, it can stay on the job longer and it can supply energy to the grid longer. If the battery can withstand more extreme temperatures, you can actually eliminate the cooling system. So all of that electricity that you would have to feed into a system like this for care and feeding of the chemistry, you can take away almost all of that in order to lower your operating costs and have a lower cost energy storage system on the grid.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, it's kind of like we laid out the criteria where it's like, this would make for a great energy storage battery chemistry. And then sodium ion was like, check, 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 check.
Absolutely. It's our relentless focus on delighting the customer. And in this case, it's not the auto buying public, it's a B2B and customer, and it's a utility customer, but that's exactly what they're looking for. They're looking for the lowest cost electron and the lowest worry electron. And we think that's what we can provide them with sodium ion chemistry.
Our next generation sodium ion cell development will drive energy density higher and cost lower, with the potential to outperform more mature chemistries over time. That long-term potential matters. Sodium is one of the most abundant elements on Earth. It's in table salt. And that gives us a pathway to more affordable materials, lower costs, and greater supply chain resilience as we build storage at scale over the long term.
Now, I wanted to spend a little bit of time looking at the pack and the architecture. I mean, these are monstrous packs, but they've got a big job to do. How did you guys land on, separate from the chemistry architecture, but the physical architecture, the mechanicals, like how did you guys make those material selections, and maybe a little bit, what are we looking at on the floor here?
Well, you talked about partnerships, and so I'm going to give credit where credit's due. This is Peak Energy's system. And so they have engineers on their team that have already engineered multiple ESS systems at other companies, but they decided they wanted to start a new company and do it better themselves with that fundamental premise that a passively cooled energy storage system is the way to win. And the way to do passively energy storage is to have sodium ion. But this system is really neat because if you look at, for example, they call this a battery module. This giant black box they call a battery module. Right. It looks like what we would think of as a battery pack in most EVs. That's right. Yeah. And what they do is they stack 9 of them on top of each other. There's a gap in between them that allows air to flow through it. And all of these modules are on a tilt. That's not a display thing. That's actually how they're built in production. So just like when you warm up the chimney in your house and heat rises and it continues to pull air through the chimney, this system, as temperature rises, will continually and gently pull airflow between all the packs to keep them cool in order to keep even temperatures throughout the battery.
So you're using very basic or fundamental elements of thermodynamics, and you're just saying don't let the heat stagnate, let it escape naturally.
That's right.
Which is going to take something that would be very passive and make it slightly active, just using the laws of thermodynamics.
Yes, and we're trying to make these batteries more like what consumers are used to. You don't have a liquid cooling system on your iPhone battery or your power tool battery or your flashlights, right? So we want to get batteries back to the point of being silent, stationary objects that sit there and do their job reliably and no one has to worry about them.
With the number of cycles, I think one of the graphics that you had showed was on the order of 3 to 4x the number of cycles over its life versus some other chemistries that are in GM's portfolio but not tailored to the storage piece of it.
Correct, yeah. Okay. So energy storage systems, a lot of times people use cycles as a proxy for time because many energy storage systems are being cycled once a day. So these systems are designed to last for 20 years or more, which takes 10 to 20,000 full cycles. Whereas a typical electric vehicle battery, after you've driven 1,000 full cycles on a battery, on an EV that has 300 miles of range, that's 300,000 miles, right? So you actually don't need nearly as many cycles on an EV battery as you need for grid energy storage.
Because everything around the battery is going to collapse first.
Yeah,
theoretically.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. Now, I mentioned in the beginning, a bit about this partnership and what GM's been able to accomplish. I've found in my own, personal life or professional life, those things only happen when you've got really good people with really good focus at the top and saying, hey, we're gonna find compromises. This is the mission. We're gonna work with partners. What do you find has, in GM's example here and all the partners that are represented here, what has been the enabler for GM to pull all this stuff together?
Well, in this partnership, what Peak brings is this novel, passively cooled energy storage system. Yep. And what General Motors is bringing is the ability to develop a next generation sodium ion cell that's going to take that system. That system's already simple and it's better than most of what's out there. And we're going to make it even better with a next generation sodium ion cell. So what you're looking at on this table these are tangible examples of what we were able to build at the facilities we have in Warren, Michigan. We're going to use the same tools that we have to build better electric vehicle batteries to make better energy storage batteries. So we have a battery R&D lab where we can synthesize new battery materials and chemistries like this. And then we've got a battery prototype lab where we can bring that to life. So this is a General Motors made cell that I'm holding right now. We didn't have to ask anyone for help. We did it ourselves on our campus in Warren, Michigan, in walking distance to our R&D lab. And then what we also have is you have to actually manufacture these things and in a bunch of different steps, including very sophisticated steps like coating the active material on an electrode. And that processing we perfect at our battery cell development center, where we can make a couple thousand of these types of cells each day at production speeds. And that helps get us bridge the gap between prototyping and gigascale manufacturing. So that's what we bring to this relationship is the recipe and the process to make best-in-class energy density sodium-ion cell.
And then you plug in, as you mentioned, the integration and the system-level architecture that they've developed.
Yep.
And it's a dovetailed fit.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. Now, some of the things that we talk about on the anode and cathode, you look at similar architectured cells with a different chemistry, you'd find copper versus aluminum. You'd find difficulties in the carbon piece of that, whereas these are uniquely suited to less costly materials. Why is that? Where was the thought process here?
Well, so one of the things that's neat about sodium ion is that you can use aluminum foil on both the anode and the cathode, whereas in a lithium ion cell, you have to use more expensive and heavier copper on the anode. The only downside of it is when you're walking around the lab, you have to really be careful about how you label your material because now it all looks the same.
That's right,
But yeah, so you have a more affordable anode foil, and that's driven by the fundamental chemical reactions that are happening inside a lithium ion cell. If you tried to use aluminum on the anode in a lithium ion cell, you would have chemical reactions that would immediately degrade the battery.
You'd get an alloy, and that's no good.
Yeah, you don't have that in sodium ions. So that's one enabler for cost downs. And then, the sodium material itself is ubiquitous. It's in the entire state of Michigan is practically on top of a giant salt mine. So now it's not battery grade, and that's always the problem with battery materials is you've got to take dirt and rocks and you've got to turn it into fancy dirt and rocks through processing. But that's something that we can do here in the United States is we can process these raw materials into useful battery materials.
Yeah, no, this is fantastic. You're touching on a lot of things that in the lithium space, certainly in automotive, and I'm sure you've experienced this, we're constantly looking at what are the alternate materials, we're balancing cost and performance and C-rate and packaging and weight and all these other attributes, and there's like standard metrics that we'll all use to get there and standardize the way that we look at those things. But it's a different set of metrics to a degree when you're looking at the storage solutions.
It is, because it would be very difficult to take a sodium ion cell and put it into an EV and get, for example, 300 miles of range. That would be really difficult to do today. Sure. But in an energy storage system, you're not worried about 300 miles of range. You're worried about, will it last 20 years? Right. Can it handle higher temperatures? Is it safer so that you can have a totally passive system?
Sure. No, I love the creativity and the unique approach. We're really excited to see where this goes. And, Andy, I'm really just excited to see, as we're trying to help, I was recently at the Mackinac Policy Conference. Yeah. We're talking to policymakers and corporate leadership and all sorts of industries and walks. We're trying to figure out ways to support from the profitability side and the connection and networking side to get more companies to develop partnerships, much like GM has done with Peak, PG&E, ChargePoint, et cetera. And we're really excited to see that.
Awesome.
So thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you very much for the time.
Yeah, good luck. Thanks, everyone.